The first thing that I want to do is render this location component. So I'm going to come down here and say render location, and then we're going to do a screen.debug to get an idea of what happens when we do that. It looks like right from the get-go, we're going to get an error, and if we scroll around here, we're going to see that error happens when we render this location, and it's saying cannot read get current position of undefined. If we dive in deep enough, then we'll see that's happening right here where our dependency is calling navigator, geolocation, get current position. So we need to mock this out. So let's come up here and we'll add a before all window navigator geolocation is an object that has a get current position. And for us, we actually don't really care to get the actual current position of whoever's running the test. That would actually make our test a little bit finicky. So we're actually going to just mock this out with the jest function. And then in our test specifically, we'll give it a mock implementation. So now if we save this, we're going to get a loading state for our test. So let's go ahead and add an assertion for that. We can say expect screen get by label text loading to be in the document. Great, so our test is passing. Now we need to figure out some way to mock the get current position API so that it behaves just like the get current position API that's implemented in the browser. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to make a fake position that has chords and a latitude of 35 and a longitude of 139. And then before I render, I want to have window navigator .geolocation.get current position, which is a mock function as I've defined it up here. And I'm going to say I want to mock the implementation to be a function that accepts a callback, and then it calls that callback with the fake position. Now, if I save that, my test is actually now passing because I already have the latitude and longitude as soon as this function is called. Now let's dive into the implementation of our location component again here. And here we see we're calling use current position. It's returning the position. And if it doesn't have a position, it's going to render that spinner, which is what it was doing before. If it has an error, then it's going to render an error. And otherwise, it's just going to render the latitude and longitude with those coordinates. But the user's experience is actually showing a loading spinner for a second, so we don't want to immediately call this callback with that fake position that we've got. We actually want to wait a little bit until we've had a chance to verify that the loading indicator shows up. So this is what our little deferred utility here is that Marty the Moneybag gave us, and we're going to use that to defer something to happen until later. So right here, I'm going to get promise and resolve from deferred. And then in my mock implementation, I'm going to say promise. Once that's resolved, then it can go ahead and call that callback. And then if I save that, now my test is passing again, but I need to actually resolve this promise so that it can call the callback with that fake position and re-render my component with the position information. So now I can say resolve, and then we'll wait for that promise to actually resolve. And then let's do a screen debug right here. Great, so we've got a warning right here. We can talk about that later. But what we've got now is a latitude and longitude showing up properly. So now I can verify that the loading spinner is no longer in there. And we're going to say we want that not to be in the document. Let's save that. And here, now we're getting an error that's saying it's unable to find the label text of loading. Well, that's exactly what we're trying to accomplish here. And the reason that's happening is because get by queries are actually going to throw if they can't find what they're looking for. And if we actually don't want them to find what they're looking for, then we can switch this to query by label text, which will not throw, but instead return null. And that will make this assertion pass. So we're still getting that warning, but let's go ahead and continue with the latitude and longitude here. So we'll expect the screen get by text latitude to have text content latitude, and we want that latitude to be the same thing as our fake position.chords.latitude. Okay, and then we'll do the exact same thing for our longitude, and we'll capitalize that. And let's get rid of that screen debug. And now we've got a passing test. We just got a warning that we can take care of here in just a second. But let's go ahead and stop and review what we have right now. So first of all, we had to mock out the geolocation API because that's not currently supported in JS DOM. And even if it were, we might want to mock out what getCurrentPosition returns so that our tests will run reliably regardless of where the machine is in the world at the time that's running our test. So we mock it out to a JustMock function. Then down here we create a fake position and we make a mock implementation for getCurrentPosition to call the callback with that fake position. But then we only want to do that after this promise resolves, which will give us a chance to verify that the loading spinner shows up before we tell that promise to resolve, wait for it to actually resolve, and then verify the UI after that state.